Welcome, everybody. I'm joined by Steve, and we are here to talk about 7 collectibles that haven't aged well. So on this channel, we talk a lot about, hey, this is Star Wars or Star Trek, Lord of the Rings. These are all things that have value. And we thought, what are all these 90s collectibles a little bit before that haven't aged well?
Right.
So we made a list. Steve, thanks again for joining us here.
Sure.
And so this was a really fun exercise because it was super nostalgic. I even put together a slide deck because I care about you guys that much. And right there we have the number one collectible of 2024, the Stanley mug. Do you know anyone in your life, Steve, that's going like and mobbing a Starbucks for a Stanley mug right now?
No, but it got me thinking that I wonder if I should check my Starbucks here in the country I live in to see if there's any unique, for those, I live in Korea right now. Any unique Korea branded Stanley mugs, because those will definitely hold their value, I'm sure.
Yeah, definitely. So I think this Stanley mug retails for like $30 and it's selling on eBay for like $250 or something. So I will just say, if you want to buy this, that's on you. But if you come back in 10 years, I don't think we'll be doing a video about like the top 10 Stanley mugs and their value.
No.
So this just kind of got us thinking a little bit. So we have 7 things here, and a lot of them are sort of 90s related. Some are a little bit before, but let's get started with our list here. So first thing, anything Looney Tunes. So if you think back to the 90s, like Looney Tunes was the number one show. It was kind of everywhere. Bugs Bunny, the little shorts before movies. And now it has zero cultural cachet, right? Does anyone talk about Looney Tunes with you, Steve?
No, and I don't think there's a Looney Tunes version of Lorcana coming out anytime soon from Ravensburger. It's interesting because you alluded to the long reign from the the golden age of cartoons in the I guess like 40s on, and it reinvented now and then. And then you got like Space Jam in the 90s was like a huge hit.
Mega.
And you saw kids with Looney Tunes paraphernalia, Bugs, Daffy, all that stuff, Roadrunner. But yeah, I've not seen that on with my kids or my kids' friends. Absolutely gone.
Yeah, and I think there was this attempt with Space Jam 2, which was essentially a failure. I checked out the numbers. It was 150 million in the box office or budget, and basically made 160 million, which I think in Hollywood terms is bad. If you only make back your budget, not a good ROI. And I think it's just one of these things
that with this is that these characters they're kind of mean, a lot of them, and like bad stuff happens in these cartoons. Like I think I was talking to my wife once, like, do you want to show the kids these cartoons? And I don't know. Whereas Disney, like the classic Mickey stuff, a lot of this was also pretty mean, but a lot of this has been so sanitized, and like the Mickey you see on kids' lunchboxes down at Disneyland is nothing like the Mickey of the Golden Age cartoons.
Yeah, like Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner. Like I think it's like cute, but I don't know if 2024 like Gen Z is like, I really want to watch Wile E. Coyote get like blown up by dynamite over and over again as he tries. I think the gimmick
somebody Santa's rifle maybe is not as
yeah. So actually, I think I want to introduce sort of we put together 3 rules for collectibles and whether they're going to age well. And I'll introduce these because I think they're useful for each of these. But the first one to think about is, what's the IP? Is it bulletproof IP like Marvel, Star Wars, Star Trek, stuff that sort of spans generations? So that's the first rule, is what's the IP? 2, what's the product look like? So in the case of Looney Tunes, there was plates, there was shirts, there was plush dolls, anything you could imagine, but does it look nice? Is it a good looking plush? Is it a good looking plate? Is it a good looking, whatever? In the case of like Magic stuff, like Magic Alpha, like a lot of people love, the cards are broken, but you could say it's cool art, right? Or whatever. And then the third is the possible utility. And, we talk about cards a lot in this channel. The utility of the cards is you could play with them, but, there's also utility you could get from other stuff, whether it's, going to conventions or engaging with community. Is there an active community? Because that's also a big thing.
Historical value, or like some people collect. I don't think this is on our list of failed collectibles, but like I think vintage, like first edition books have historical value. Those can hold their value pretty well. Yeah.
Antiquarian books. One of my favorite words I learned in college. I used to go to antiquarian book shows, and I was like, I am the haughtiest kid of all time because I went to an
Yeah.
antiquarian book show.
It's a collectible that I've not dipped my toe into. And I think it could be a deep like rabbit hole if I wanted to, but I'm holding off on that for now.
Yeah. I have a few. I actually have a first edition For Whom the Bell Tolls that I got for $50, and I have no idea if that was a good investment or not. This was like 20 years ago I bought it. So
Yeah.
if anyone needs a first edition For Whom the Bell Tolls, reach out. No, just kidding. So all right, let's keep moving on our list. So Looney Tunes,
Yeah.
you can probably get it pretty cheap now. Next on our list, collectible plates. This is something you're gonna find in your grandma's house, your parents' house.
Yeah. I think these were like a lot of times you got like you had to send away for them. There was like a catalog, like a minimum purchase order and everything. These are definitely like something my grandma has, who is over 90. Yeah, not to anybody much younger.
Yeah, and you know, going to our three rules, the collectible plates. I mean, it was just random stuff, right? You know, I had a cat there, no IP really. Products looked okay, but you're kind of nervous about eating all or using them because you might chip the sides and then grandma would kill you. And then the utility, they might be great for eating off of, but perhaps not for value. So collectible plates, not great. I don't think it resonates a lot with current folks. No one also, there's an element of how do you store this stuff or how do you display it? And you can fit like 3 plates on a shelf, man. It's not like that.
I break like 1 dish probably per month, so I can't be trusted on this kind of thing.
Yeah. So collectible plates, RIP. All right, moving on to number 5 here. Was Elvis called the king? So this is a bit grim, but you know, Elvis, I think, had a resurgence in the 80s and 90s of his stuff. And I think that was sort of following our rule of 20, where stuff tends to have 20-year nostalgia cycles. So
yeah, you had that like movie, was it like Leaving Las Vegas with Nicolas Cage? Wasn't it like an Elvis impersonator or something?
I think so. Yeah. I think so. The rule of 20 with you know, nostalgia and collectibles in general is what happens is people grow up with this stuff. You know, maybe you were growing up in the 60s, 70s, and you were like 20 years old and you loved Elvis. He was number one. You always wanted his stuff, but you couldn't afford it. 20 years later, you're in your 30s, 40s, and you're like, oh, I have some disposable income. What if I get this Elvis snow globe here because I've always wanted one? And, you know, it's cool. You finally have disposable income to use on the stuff that you want. And then 25 years later, you're in your 60s and 70s, and you're like, I have too much stuff. I'm downsizing. And so collectively, what's happening with a lot of Elvis stuff is these people in their 60s, 70s, 80s are just like, I have all this Elvis stuff. It's valuable. And it's sort of like flooding the market at one time.
Yeah.
And there's just, you know, I don't know any 25-year-old that wants an Elvis snow globe.
I do I collect some old records, and I do talk with people about like 50s, 60s music a lot. And you don't hear people talk about Elvis that much, at least not among the circles I talk, like Beatles, you know, Beach Boys are still like talked about, Ray Charles, like a bunch of people from that era. But like, I don't think people, like even people who are interested in old music, listen to Elvis that much these days. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think it's. I mean, it's still, yeah, you know, a legend, but that doesn't mean that people want like busts of Elvis head in their house.
Right.
So, you know, and I'll note with everything on this list, I'm sure there's exceptions. I'm sure someone's going to comment like, did you know actually Elvis's first release record? This is more like writ large, the stuff, right?
Sure, yeah.
So RIP to the king. I guess I don't even remember what year he died. Sometime in the 70s, I think.
I think that's right. Yeah.
So it's just been, you know, his fans are no longer super active collectors. So this is kind of what happens with this stuff. All right, next on our list, the Cabbage Patch Kids. Do you
As a 90s kid, I was a dissenter. I was never into these. These always kind of freaked me out.
Yeah, going to our 3 rules, you know, there's no story with the IP is just maybe there's a cartoon or something, but in general,
but like the aesthetics are not there for these.
Yeah, and so I'm sure there's some. I'm sure people can point out like the one original 80s first Cabbage Patch doll one is valuable, but the vast majority of these are not worth very much, right?
Right.
The other thing to note here is they're large to store.
Right.
They're like you can fit like 6 in a tub, and
Right.
that's not great for huge collections.
I'd be curious on the value of these versus American Girl dolls. I think American Girl dolls do hold their value, like the older ones.
I think that's right. Yeah.
And I would argue that's probably because, like, I'm not like a doll collector in general, although my one of my daughter has a couple American Girls. I think they are objectively better looking, and they have an interesting like history behind them. So those might be better.
Yeah, that kind of goes to like the IP and also what it looks like. You know, the IP for American Girl, like my sister was obsessed with Samantha, right? It was the brown one, like, and you know, all Samantha's outfits, all this sort of stuff. I also think I made a note here. There's an aversion, like I think many adults, we have secret dorky things we do, but as an adult man, I don't really want to be collecting like Cabbage Patch Kids. Like it's a little too embarrassing. Star Wars cards is already pretty embarrassing, but like this is extra embarrassing to have these, like a room of these. It's like
so yeah, you're in like potential like horror movie territory if you're looking for
right.
Kids in the
yeah, it's just yeah, like the cultural zeitgeist has passed a little bit on a lot of this stuff, but you know, if you've got a huge collection, well, then maybe just enjoy the huge collection, but it might not be a time to sell it. All right. Next on our list, stamps, but not coins.
Right.
So I think we've all been there where our grandpa is like showing off his stamp collection. He's like, this one, this one, this one. And I think now I had a friend that's very into coin collecting, and he was saying that, you know, he went to a coin show and there's tons of people for coins, and like the stamps is like a back corner. And it's all like over 70 years old.
Yeah.
Because coins is like a really interesting, you can get in like, this is an ancient Roman coin, or, you know, there's like a huge generational span. It just doesn't have to be like, you know, American dollar coins from X year or something. It's a pretty huge space.
And this is a curious one to me, why the difference. I think couple differences are, coins go back to being like an archaeological thing the farther back you go. Actually, I do have one ancient Roman coin. I want to get more of them at some point, but I like pulling it out at some point. It's about 2,000 years old. It's kind of cool. And then like coins have a historical significance too. Like there's difference like the front and the back, like when they're struck, the exact year can sometimes be, or the month can be interesting about them. So stamps you think they're the same, but I think maybe, I don't know, it's interesting.
Yeah, I think with the stamps, there's two other things. With coins, there's even grading services that grade coins, and that's a pretty robust, you know, I don't quite know how it works, but I understand grading as a principle. So you can have your coins graded. Stamps, I don't really think there's a huge grading for stamps, because a lot of times they're just, you know, on a page, and there's not a huge appeal in the younger market, because if you think about Gen Z, like we you know, I'm not Gen Z, you're not Gen Z, but I see them now. And mail a whole lot, right? And so even the appeal of stamps as like a concept is a little foreign to them. They're like, why are you collecting stamps from 1920? I'm like, oh, I don't know. I also think that there's so many that have been released over the years that it's a market that is insane. Like every year the post office has like tons of commemorative stamps, and it's fun for mailing, but storing value or we're collecting, except for your personal purposes, probably not a good use.
It's something that I've thought about at various points, like trying to create a stamp collection, but I'm glad I'm not gone there.
I did see a interesting graph where it was the value of forever stamps. So I think a forever stamp is somewhere around 60 cents now. But it's like, if you know, they go up every year, but if you have a forever stamp, it's good forever. And you had bought them at like in 2000 when they're like 25 cents a stamp, like you basically would have gotten like a 6% ROI. You know, like so it's like, oh, that's interesting. If I only would have bought a bunch of forever stamps in 2000, I would be in good shape now to mail stuff. So stamps, coins, though, cool market. I would actually love to own a few coins and you know, currency in general as well. So it's not just coins. All right. The second one on our list, this is this pains me to say, but the vast majority of collectible card games from the 90s, there is just over 200 collectible card games that came out in the 90s, and the most of them are not good.
Yeah. And when we were going last year, we were going through like forgotten CCGs. It was interesting. Like a lot of those 90s games, they have like one or two cards that are kind of valuable, but what that means is like all of the other cards you pull with booster packs are worth nothing.
Yeah, and that creates issues with storage where it's like, oh, I have 100,000 cards and one is valuable. It's like, what do you do with the other 100,000?
Right.
So,
and even with Magic, the most popular CCG, people think, oh, if only I'd kept all of my mid 90s Magic, I'd be swimming in money right now. But actually, no, that's not true. Other than like, Alpha Beta Unlimited, you pull out your box of Ice Age cards, almost all of them are worth nothing. Like most Magic cards, or even from the 90s, are worth nothing. It's really hard to pick and know. It would have been impossible back then to really know which ones were going to be valuable.
Yeah, and these can kind of roughly follow the three rules. Like I do think the games that have held value are ones that have good IP, or like an interesting game. So like Pokemon, right? Like there's hardcore Pokemon fans that play the games that love the IP.
Good IP. Like the video games are always sell well, and I mean, in fact, I think Magic is the only CCG that's gone the long haul without a good IP attached. Without it has its own IP, but without an outside IP attached to it, right?
Yeah, and also that I have a Young Jedi card here. This is another one where what does the product look like? A lot of people just don't think these cards look great, right? Like I think Star Wars CCG stuff looks really beautiful, and that's why I'm like, oh, like these cards are a little bit art. Like, I don't know, man. That CGI Jar Jar with the card frame, it just doesn't do it for me. So it doesn't.
Second rule. Some of them, some of the images are cool on them, but the framing around it looks like something doctored up with like MS Paint. It's like very blocky, and it's not great.
Yeah. And I think the last note I have here is there's simply not enough demand with 200 plus card games that came out in the 90s. There's just literally billions of cards, and there are not billions of hardcore collectors. So you have to pick and choose a little bit. All right.
I think that's a warning for people who are getting into this, like, I guess what I would call like third wave CCGs right now. Your Flesh and Blood, Sorcery, what is it? MetaZoo, these games like
Kickstarter, everything on Kickstarter.
Every indie CCG on Kickstarter. Just like, is this going to go the long haul? I don't know. Maybe Flesh and Blood.
That's something to think about a little bit. And like, this is maybe an argument for why Lorcana, like Disney is real IP. I still wouldn't buy it for the purpose of investing, but like I could see in 10 years, like Lorcana cards having some value versus like I have a box Lorcana, will you give me $20 for it, kind of thing.
Right. I do. Whole Lorcana. I don't think it'll be mismanaged the way like the Harry Potter TCG was, where it just kind of dies after 4 steps. I think it'll more likely go the long haul because of the IP.
Yeah, the Harry Potter is a good reference point. Like that's one that, while it's not super valuable, it passes a few of the tests. Like it passed it's a good IP. It's a fun-ish game, but the cards,
the card art, the art is just garbage.
They look horrific. Yeah, and maybe that's why you only have. It has some value. It's not like a booster box is $20. A booster box is $100.
If they had competent movie stills on those cards, I think they'd be still valuable today, like really valuable today.
Yeah, I agree. Getting Daniel Radcliffe to sign Harry Potter,
definitely.
So, okay, our final one. I don't think this is going to be a surprise to anyone. The king of all bad collectibles, right here. I made wrote a joke here, but there's more tubs of these in garages than there are stars in the sky. It's just insane.
Every thrift store, every like Goodwill is going to have these, just like stinky, dirty Beanie Babies in a back pail somewhere.
Yeah, I mean that's actually another good point as well. Is like, does the product absorb smells, moistures, right? Like weirdness. Like, how hard is it to keep in mint condition?
Right. Yes.
most Beanie Babies stink, man, from being stored in a dingy garage or basement or storage unit, whatever.
Yeah.
I will just quick story here. I'm part of a Facebook group for Beanie Babies just out of interest because I found my mom's Beanie Baby. She's like, oh, these worth anything. So like a couple years ago, I joined this group, and the Beanie Baby people are like savage on there. They're so mean and like it's like
some Beanie Baby fans in the comments.
Yeah, it's just like women, mostly women in their 40s that are all like really mean to each other.
Wow.
Does not seem like a positive collecting space.
Oh man. But are there Star Wars or Star Trek Beanie Babies? Do we know?
I don't think there were. I mean, that's actually one where I'm like, oh, that'd be kind of cool to have a Captain Kirk.
Oh, I would go for like an Ewok or like a Jabba the Hutt Beanie Baby. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah. So right here in the picture, I have a Princess Di, and this is the one where I think everybody's like, there's eBay posts for $25,000. And I actually have done some internet reading, and for a minute there in the 2000s, people were selling Beanie Babies at absurd prices to like launder money.
What?
Because you could sell one for $20,000, and the IRS or whatever is not like verifying the value. So there's like this whole like money laundering piece to it. So there's obviously a select few from the original set that might have some value, the perfect tags, perfect condition, but the vast majority of these are
just not gonna
$1 or $2, and you should give it to your kid to play with. Really, that's like the value there. And there's like all these funny things, like with the Princess Di one there. It's like, is it produced in Indonesia between 1995 and 1996? Does it have smaller pellets or bigger pellets? Like,
wow,
it's within, like with all collectibles, it's like the gradations within something, right?
Yeah.
So Beanie Babies, I'm sorry if you've got 3 tubs full, you might be able to get $20 for it. So I'd love to hear people's thoughts. Obviously, I'm sure people have strong opinions on some of these. I actually don't think so. I think all of these are pretty rough collectibles. But that's kind of all I got. Steve, do you have any final thoughts?
This is good. Next time we'll do Pogs. I think I go hard for Pog analysis.
We might do a part 2. There was somewhere I was like trying to add them to the list. I was like, Pogs are Pogs? And I was like researching the Pog market, and I was like, I can't do this. I don't have enough time to research the Trolls, Pogs, model trains. And then there's some that are surprising. I was like, oh, is Hot Wheels one? I was like, no, Hot Wheels are actually very collectible still. Or
really?
Trucks.
So make sure my son's Hot Wheels are not like hiding under the washing machine or something.
Yeah. Transformers. There's a bunch of these that I wanted to add to the list that I was like, oh, these are actually still valuable. That's interesting. But anyways, well, thanks for tuning in, everybody. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Hope you enjoyed the video, and we might do a part 2. But comment what you think we missed on this list. All right, we'll catch you next time.